Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Untreed's Live. It feels like it's been a hot minute since we've been here to see you. Good Lord, my hair's a mess today. Wow, we won't even talk about that. That's the scariest part of all. Hello, Mr. Gizmo. With me today, as always, is Gizmo, our spokespig and marketing director. In our chat is CEO Katie Sullivan and our dynamic chat hostess, Sandra Murphy. So welcome to everybody. 2 weeks, folks, since we last saw you. I'm sorry it's been so long. Things have been a little crazy. This is, of course, our Halloween episode. We're very excited to be here in costume with you. I think we did a fantastic job, don't you, in picking out our costumes this year? I, of course, dressed up as a complete nerd who likes to make video shows with a guinea pig. So I think I pretty much nailed that one. And Gizmo is the Merriam-Webster definition of adorable. So there you go. I dare anybody to try and say that they came up with a more accurate Halloween costume than either myself or Gizmo did. You know, nobody really wants to look at your butt. It would be a lot nicer if you would turn around. It's shapely, but it's really just not appropriate for the show. Okay, we'll just let him kind of do his thing then for a while. So to kind of catch you folks up on what's been going on with Untreed Reads, we had Frankfurt Book Fair, which just getting ready for it alone pretty much made Katie and I want to run for the hills. There's a tremendous amount of prep work that goes into working a virtual book fair and book event, but we were determined to go out there and try to get rights, translation rights for our books, and we're still working on that. We've had some very interested folks get back to us. We've got a couple things in the works, so we're very, very excited about where Frankfurt Book Fair might take us from here, and what it means for our authors and potential for translations. I did just get a notice today that 2 of our audiobooks that have been in production, The Wicked Ways of a True Hero by Barbara Metzger and The Portrait by Joan Wolfe. Both of those audiobooks have been approved by ACX, and they are on their way right now to retail. So probably within the next 24 hours or so, if you're interested in either of those Regency romances and to listen to them on audiobook, you will have the opportunity to pick them up wherever ACX distributes, basically audible.com or Amazon, or basically anywhere that has Audible audiobooks. That's where you'll find them along with all of our others. Did I mention how bad my hair looks today? Anyway, I digress. It's our Halloween episode. So want to talk a little bit about horror. And mind you, I had to get both syllables in there because I keep saying horror, and people are asking why I'm insulting them. And then I have to explain that, you know, I just am missing that second syllable when I say the word, and I'm not trying to be offensive. Umpteen years ago, we attended one of our very first book conventions back east in New York City, and had a rather unfortunate experience with, well, we won't mention their exact name of the organization. Let's just say that it's one that deals with mystery writers who live in America. And it was a pretty horrible experience. And then we went 2 tables down and met the Horror Writers of America, and they were amazing. And the one thing that really sort of came to light was just how wonderful the horror writing community really is, how close-knit they are, how much the publishers work together to promote each other. I just found it this really warm, welcoming group of folks, and they definitely made us feel warm and welcome, and accepted us as a registered publisher. And so then we started looking at what kind of horror novels did we want to do that would fit in well with basically us as a brand. Early on, long before I joined Untreed Reads, I had discovered a really fantastic author by the name of Joshua Calkin's Trilogy. Joshua and I have now been working together for close to 10 years. He introduced to us his horror series called Roads Through Amelia. They basically, all the stories take place in the mythical city of Amelia, where everything and their uncle goes wrong in terms of people getting killed. Santa even plays into one of those. We eventually, as the short story market kind of fell apart, we combined all of the individual short stories that we had published and put them together in one collection titled Rose Through Amelia. As time went on, we discovered other really great folks. John Stuart Wynn, for example, with The Needles Highway. We put out an anthology that's still one of my favorites. Everybody does anthologies based around all the more common holidays. We want to do something different. We did a horror anthology based around New Year's Eve, which, thinking about 2020, not completely surprising that there would be a lot of horror involved with New Year's Eve, thinking about how this year is going to end up. But we're going to share a whole bunch of links with you folks in the comment section that will take you to some of our horror listings, so you can kind of see what we've got going on. The first one I'm sharing with you is going to be, and I will eventually put these in the show notes as well. The first link is going to be to our short stories. We've done plenty of those over the years, but for the most part, we've now combined them into collections and anthologies because, again, sort of once the short story market kind of fell apart, it made it very difficult for individual short stories to be profitable and for us to continue down that road. We also have two special bundles that we put together for Halloween that are exclusive to our friends at DriveThruFiction.com. If you're not familiar with DriveThruFiction, they are the only independent ebook store that's left. We used to have a lot more out there. Folks have been around in the ebook space for a long time will remember FictionWise. We had ebooks.com, who might or might not still be around. I think they switched to textbooks only. But DriveThruFiction's always been good to us. The one thing we always say to authors is you don't promote a retailer because rarely do they do anything in return for you. So you're always paying them for the privilege of having your book listed. But with DriveThruFiction, they give us a ton of love, a ton of free advertising. They promote us on all of their listings. So what we did is we created two special bundles for Halloween. One is strictly for short stories, and one is for full lengths. So specially priced to get you a nice big selection of stories at really, really decent prices. The novel collection is only $10. We have it on sale. And the short story collection is only $5. And that one is for 10 short stories. So, I mean, that's huge. And I just dropped that link into the comment section as well. Again, I'll get around to posting those into the show notes after we conclude today, just in case you want to check those out. We always appreciate it. As always, we're happy to have you pick up our titles wherever, whenever. We just appreciate all of the support. We also this week were able to get into pre-order a brand new short story anthology called Peace, Love, and Crime, crime fiction inspired by the songs of the 1960s. That is edited by our chat hostess, Sandra Murphy, and features a lineup of 22. Yes, Katie is cringing just as I say the number 22 when she thinks about the number of contracts she had to do. Includes 22 authors from all over the mystery and crime spectrum, many of which have written for Untreed Reads before. And we're thrilled to have them all back and in a brand new anthology. That went up for pre-order for ebook last night at Apple, Barnes & Noble, and Amazon. The print is available for pre-order from our site only. You can grab that paperback at bit.ly, that's bit.ly/PL crime. Again, we'll be having that link in the show notes as well. Let me drop that into the chat. And there we go. Dropped that one. So we appreciate you checking that out. There'll be a lot more to come on Peace, Love, and Crime coming up. It's got a street date of November 10th. We are giving DriveThruFiction an exclusive. So feel free to pre-order it anywhere you'd like at your favorite retailer. However, if you want to be able to purchase it and read it immediately, beginning November 3rd, you'll be able to do that from DriveThruFiction.com. They will be the only ones allowed to sell the title for a week And then all of your other favorite retailers will have the book available on November 10th. We had originally looked at having a November 3rd street date, and then Katie very wisely pointed out to me that, you know what, maybe having a book launch on Election Day is not the best option. I totally agreed. We'll let everything calm down so that we can put the focus back on Sandy and her authors where it deservedly belongs. And so we'll go with a November 10th launch. We've also figured out some really terrific software that's going to allow us to do live interviews. I'm very excited about this. As you can tell, we're a little rudimentary here right now on YouTube Live, doing some live streaming. Haven't done a whole lot of recorded shows up until now, mostly while I try to figure out the technology behind everything that I want to accomplish. Done quite a bit of research, bunch of testing. We've come up with a really great solution that will allow us to do a tremendous amount more with this channel and bring in our authors for interviews, conversations. We'll be able to do more pre-recorded stuff. Also be on the lookout for a new playlist that will be coming to our YouTube channel that will be incorporating live blogs, recorded bits and things from all of our authors that we've sort of picked up from other spots on YouTube, and we'll be bringing it to our channel so that you can find all of our authors and everything they have to say in one place. We're pretty excited about bringing that too. We just want it to be kind of a one-stop shop for everything having to do with Untreed Reads and our authors. Plus, as always, you know, we hope to continue being able to be a source of education for authors who may be new, or, you know, folks that have been around a long time that maybe aren't as familiar with, you know, some processes or the way things work in some cases. Education's great. Can't make informed decisions without it. Also, if you folks would, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe to our channel. Also like the posts. It's all free to do that. It helps us get some more exposure, get some more eyes on it. At this point, I'm sure you folks have seen we don't make money off these shows. We just have exposure. There's no ads that run or anything like that. But to help our authors get more visibility, the more the channel's liked, and the more people that subscribe, the better our authors get seen. And that's what's really most important to us, is that all this terrific talent is discovered and read. Because we have a tremendous number of amazing authors in our catalog. And we're very, very active on Twitter. I think I've mentioned this in a couple different videos now. The past couple weeks have really seemed to be a good time for us to be able to jump in on other related conversations and be able to talk more about titles from our backlist. There's been a lot of comments on Twitter lately about why do publishers only seem to promote 3 or 4 titles that are just coming out now and never seem to promote their backlist. I would say it's because when publishers seem to get too big, they're chasing the next dollar, and they're not focused on the bread and butter, which really is, and especially as Katie and I have discovered, you know, is always backlist. A title sells really well for the first few weeks that it comes out, and then as the interest sort of wanes a bit, you know, you've got to find new ways to keep that interest going. But it's always going to be your core titles and your backlist that continue to drive things. And as an author comes out with a brand new book, or as part of an anthology, or comes out with something from a new author, from another publisher, you know, that's going to only move to, you know, produce more sales. So it's important to always be looking at all of the titles that are available by an author, or if you are the author, looking at not just what title you just put out this week and being super heavy emphasis on it, but making sure that you don't lose sight of the fact that you have other titles available that are of interest. People won't necessarily find those. And I'll give you a great example of this. One of our authors is fantasy author Nancy Springer. Now, if that name seems familiar to you, Nancy is also the author of the extremely hot young adult series Enola Homes, which is you know, basically takes place in the Sherlock Holmes universe. Enola Holmes was just turned into a Netflix film and potential Netflix series of films. So what we've done is we've ensured, you know, by working with Nancy and working with Nancy's agent, that as she posts things about Enola Homes, we find ways to tie in our short stories that we've published for her and her collection. And we jump in on other Enola Homes threads and talk about those stories. As a result, there has been a definite interest in the last 2 weeks in those individual short stories from Nancy, which is, they're quite older titles from our catalog. We're looking at almost 10 years of those short stories being there. But thanks to being able to jump on the bandwagon of something that's new and talk about something that's older, we're able to generate that interest across the board for all of Nancy's titles. Same thing this week. We had somebody who commented that she was looking for adult fairy tales, and we jumped in and said, well, we don't necessarily have that, but we've got these the Nurseryland Murders from Herschel Cosine, which are all mysteries that take place in nursery rhymes. Well, that was of definite interest to her, and she ended up recommending those to her students. And it's these things you have to look for, these opportunities. Those opportunities aren't going to come on Facebook. They're just not. Twitter's a more immediate location to be jumping on those things. Which takes them back to horror, because this is the time of year that everybody is on Twitter talking about what they're reading for horror, what scares them. The thing we've probably been the most active with is everybody's talking about movies and which Halloween movies scare them the most, and which ones they're looking forward to watching. We were very fortunate to pick up the rights to a novel called Razorback from Peter Brennan. Razorback was turned into a movie out of Australia. It is a huge cult classic film from Australia, directed by Russell Mulcahy, which is someone who has done a ton of some of the most popular music videos that people have ever seen. But it was one of these situations where the movie was well known, but the book wasn't necessarily as well known. So this year, as sites like Fangoria and other horror outlets are talking about what movies should be in their top 10, what movies are people watching, we're finding lots of opportunities to bring out Razorback and talk about the book, talk about Peter, tie the book into these lists that everybody else is talking about. And that's something you as authors, as publishers, you need to look at those seasonal opportunities and then just really monitor what are people talking about, and do you have something that fits in that doesn't necessarily feel like hitting somebody over the head with a sales pitch. So Razorback's been great for that. There was another discussion I saw on Twitter about small town horror that let us bring out discussions on Roads Through Amelia. Lots of people talking about short story horror that let us talk about the bundles on Drive Through Fiction. With our bundles being exclusive to Drive Through Fiction, they've done a bunch of free promotion for us on those bundles on Twitter and Facebook and other social media. So whether it's Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, look at how you can talk about what you've done without it being a sales pitch. It will work itself naturally into any conversation about the season, any conversation about a holiday. It's another way to get the word out. And this is a lot easier to do on Twitter and a lot easier to do on Instagram than it really is on Facebook. It's just not the kind of discussions that occur on Facebook. So Gizmo's getting a little antsy. He's ready to head back to his office. So I'm going to return him to his office. And when I come back, we're going to talk a little bit about publishing horror stories. Hang on one second. Gizmo, say hi to everybody. Come here, buddy. This little guy is going back to his office. Yes, but if you could please finish the promo for Peace, Love, and Crime. Thank you. Whew. So I had put the word out for folks to tell me about their publishing horror stories, bad things they've encountered in the publishing industry. The one thing that seems to be really, really common, a common theme across the stories that I received, were contract horror stories. Either something was missing from a contract that was sort of critical, or something was in the contract that somebody didn't catch. And as a result, when they went to get their rights back, or they went to go try to collect royalties or something, something went horribly wrong and they were left with no recourse. I can't stress enough how important it is to really, really carefully read a contract. And if you don't understand necessarily what's being asked of you, or what rights you're agreeing to give up, uh, take it somewhere to someone that does understand. There are lots of free sources out there of places that will examine contracts for you and help you discover whether or not everything in there is kosher. Now, uh, some are a little better than others. I believe Mystery Writers of America, Thriller Writers, Horror Writers Association, Sci-Fi Organization, they all have ways for you to contact them and get assistance with contracts to help understand a little better about what's being asked. And a lot of the sites will cover specific holes that you need, pitfalls that you need to look out for. A lot of these often have to do with what is your recourse if royalties haven't been paid to you. I've heard a couple horror stories lately of anthologies that were placed with another publisher. Publisher, for whatever reason, has kind of gone AWOL and has left, full sales quarters of royalties completely unpaid to the authors. Somebody felt comfortable enough to share the contract with me, and when I looked at it, there was literally no recourse in the contract for addressing such an issue. Folks, the money only flows one way. Money's got to go from the publisher to the author. That's where it goes. It never goes the other way, and there should never be anything that stops that money from flowing in that direction. Like Katie has asked, is the Authors Guild still a good resource for contract review? Absolutely. Authors Guild is a fantastic option for checking over contracts or answering contract questions. But royalties are often the biggest pitfall of a contract and the biggest horror story of trying to collect royalties that are due you. So make sure that when you are looking at a contract, you fully understand A, how you're supposed to get paid, B, when you're supposed to get paid, C, if A and B don't happen, what is your course of action for ensuring that you do get paid. You don't want to necessarily have to end up going to small claims court to go fight it. So really do your homework beforehand. You'll save yourself that wretchedness of having to deal with that. Another horror piece that I've seen lately is people who thought they were able to retain certain rights, and it turned out they had signed everything over. So for example, I spoke to one author who said, well, I thought that I was going to get to retain audiobook rights, and apparently I signed over all rights, ebook, print, and audio. I had somebody lined up that I wanted to record the audiobook because I didn't want to go through Audible. I wanted it to be available through Overdrive and other places that Audible doesn't deliver to. So I was going to upload it onto another platform. Now she doesn't have that option because her contract stipulated that she gave away those rights to the publisher. She's tried getting those audiobook rights back. She can't. And due to other issues with the contract, she will not be getting out of that anytime soon. So be very, very careful that if there are rights that you want to hold onto that you don't want to have to fight about later, make sure you're really, really understanding what rights you're giving away before you sign the contract. Languages is another piece. Katie and I have had some experiences of our own where normally we've taken all language rights so that we can work on translation sales. There are certainly agents we've worked with that have said, you know what, we'll only give you World English rights, and but it's World English rights for all platforms. So you can have World English for paper, for print, ebook, and audio, but you can't have any other languages. So ultimately, that means it's back on the agent or whomever that if they want it translated into Spanish or something like that, that's up to them. We can't pursue those rights on behalf of the author unless we've gotten special permission. So if you're looking for a publisher that's going to do all those languages for you, first of all, try to get it defined in the contract to see if it's all languages or just World English. See if there's a guarantee that they're going to publish it within a certain amount of period of time, or if they're just telling you, "Hey, we'll take all these rights, but we'll publish it, whenever, preferably before we close our doors." But be careful about languages and length of time for when things will be published. It should be a negotiation. It should not be a one-way thing. These are discussions you should be able to have with your publisher, and not just have to take the contract exactly the way it comes to you. Everything's a negotiation. But if the publisher's done a good enough job, they've written the contract in a way that they understand it. When we got started in the business, Katie was coming to all this from a different angle of the business. She's a multi-published author herself through Barron's, and she's had her own book contracts, and she has an agent. She's, one of the great things she brought to the table was that experience with the contracts. I came to it from the independent publishing side of knowing what kinds of things had happened to authors in the past. And we kind of compared notes and said, okay, well, here's the things that Katie never liked about the contracts that she had received. And, I came to the table with, well, here's all the things that independent authors have told me they didn't like. And we did our best to find a common ground to eliminate those issues in our contract. Our contract is still, it's still a work in progress. We're always finding new ways to improve the wording, and new ways to shorten it. It's certainly a long piece of work at the moment, but the key there is that it's still a discussion that's had with every author. Every author has the chance to give their feedback on the contract and what's in it, to avoid any misunderstandings, to avoid anything down the line where all of a sudden the author goes, "Oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? Why am I seeing this now? Why didn't I see this before? Why is this happening to me?" You never want to find yourself in that position. So to recap, you want to look especially at when is the book, is the publisher defining when the book is going to come out? What is going to happen with your language and translation rights? Is it being distributed worldwide? Just make sure any questions you have that you feel need to be down on paper are actually addressed in the contract. If it's, I had a boss tell me once, if it's not on paper, it doesn't exist. And save yourself the heartache. The biggest thing is protect your royalties more than anything else. If a publisher is not paying you, there is an issue with the publisher. Katie and I have always said we will make whatever sacrifices we need to ensure that our authors are always paid and always paid on time. There have been some times in the past where she and I struggled a bit, but we knew how important it was to be ethical and honor our commitment in the contracts to ensure that our authors were always paid on time. And if you're going to be in the business of being a publisher and you're going to be in the business of paying people money, then you have that obligation to ensure that you are abiding 100% by your contract with that author and paying them the way that they should be. And even if you're self-publishing, please make sure that you understand the rules of whatever retailer you're working with. For example, I can't tell you the number of people that say to me, well, I get paid 70% from Amazon when I sell a book that's priced between $2.99, $9.99. And I always remind them, no, you don't. And they say, well, what do you mean? No, I don't. Of course I do. It says right there in my contract. And I have to point them to the part where it says you also pay for delivery of that file to the customer. Amazon doesn't just give that book file for free to the reader. You as the author are actually covering that cost. And if you look at your royalty statement, you will see in there how much Amazon has charged you to deliver that book to the customer on top of the percentage that they've taken for themselves. So these are the things that even if you're self-published, you need to be looking out for when you go to sign a distribution agreement with whomever it is, Apple, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, etc. When you're with a publisher, there's talking back and forth. When you're self-published and dealing with a retailer, you don't have that luxury. You have to accept whatever that contract is. There is no negotiation. And you really need to understand what you're agreeing to. So by the old clock on the wall, I'm just kidding. There's no actual clock, but there's like one up in that corner right there. You can't see it either, but it's there. It tells me I'm at 30 minutes, and YouTube tells me people hate videos that are more than 30 minutes. So why would I want anybody to hate us? If you have any questions on any of the stuff we've covered today, please drop me a line at url@untreedreads.com. More than happy to answer. Remember, if you send us questions and we answer them on air, we will send you a free ebook of your choice. Please like and subscribe. Keeps us busy. Lots more great content coming your way very, very soon. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. And you folks have yourself a really great Halloween. And try not to eat too much candy. Save the Reese's peanut butter cups for me. Thanks. Bye.